I have some very eclectic hobbies, and one of them is I really like studying ancient languages. I spent some time studying Egyptian, Chinese, which is not ancient, and and so there's different varieties of Egyptian, and last year I started learning Demotic Egyptian. So just for the background, uh, there's the Middle Kingdom Egyptian, which is the old stuff, which was around when Abraham was around. When Nephi came around and was writing the small transitionary period where they were starting to switch to Demotic. And so I believe that a lot of the small small plates of Nephi were actually written predominantly in Demotic. And then later on, they turned to Coptic, and that was after Greece had come into Egypt. And so they switched to a third language system. Now, I was going to talk about three things tonight. I want to talk about Egyptian words in the Book of Mormon. I'm also going to talk about, goodness gracious, I guess I'm getting nervous or so. Egyptian words in the Book of Mormon. I'm also going to talk about Reformed Egyptian that is found in church history. And I'm going to basically validate this Reformed Egyptian that has been found in church history, basically proving that it is legitimately Egyptian-ish or Reformed Egyptian. Doing so, it will strengthen your faith in Joseph Smith as a prophet. And basically, from my assessment, I am basically proving that Joseph Smith is a prophet. This is using linguistics, something that you don't hear very often. So this is going to be a very different presentation than from what you're used to. Now, when Larry asked me to speak, he was probably expecting me to speak on the Michigan artifacts. I kind of have a little bit of a name for myself because I spent a lot of time digging into the Michigan artifacts and deciphering the language, and basically came to the conclusion that, number one, it is Reformed Egyptian. Number two, they are decipherable, at least somewhat, so that you can figure out a lot of the symbols and figure out what they mean. And number three, a lot of them are Book of Mormon artifacts depicting Book of Mormon stories. Now, it's one of the problems that I have when I present that presentation is half the people are really excited when they hear it, and the other half of the people kind of look at you with a deer in the headlights stare because they just don't get it. And so I decided to go with this new stuff that I think is very interesting. And to me, it's very interesting. This morning, when I woke up, there was a third thing I was going to talk about. And I was basically, when I woke up, I just had this feeling or impression that I should throw in a third thing that was not that. I was going to talk about the Chautauqua Wall, which was an artifact found in Tennessee, which has somewhat of a Demotic Egyptian writing system on it. And I could even compare it with the characters document and show a lot of similarities in it. But when I woke up this morning, I just had this feeling that I should just take a little bit of time to tell you about what I've been working on recently. And that is I've been putting together this website called Book of Mormon Heartland.com. And I've basically been working on it for the entire year now. And in it, I intend to cover a lot of things that I'm interested in, such as language studies and artifact research and geography and archaeology. But at the same time, the Spirit has been very clear to me that these first three sections are really where I need to put the focus on, because that's just what He wants me to work on. And so when I first started putting this together, I went into the Joseph Smith section and I covered the history of the restoration, coming from the time from Joseph Smith's first vision up until the actual formation of the church. And I just kind of want to show a couple really interesting things that I found, because I'm not taking this from history books. I'm taking it from Times and Seasons and other early publications of the church, trying to go from as direct to the source as possible. I've got a lot of articles that are basically taking it from the history of Joseph Smith by his mother, a book that was written by my great-great-grandmother, who was actually the ghostwriter of that book, working with Lucy Smith. So you can see I got a lot of stuff from the Times and Seasons. A lot of it correlates strongly with what's in History of the Church, Joseph Smith. But then, but that's predominantly the Times and Seasons stuff. But then you get a lot of these other articles that you may not be aware of. A lot of you are probably familiar with the story of Mary Whitmer receiving a witness of the gold plates. If you have not heard that story, well, then I'm glad that you're able to get this, from me. But so there's this publication called The Historical Record in 1888, which covered the story of Mary Whitmer. And first of all, there's this painting here. And the one interesting thing about the painting is that the painter believes that this is Moroni visiting Mary Whitmer and showing her the plates. But when I look at the actual historical documents, it doesn't necessarily say that it's Moroni. In fact, it says something other than that. So let me just read a little bit from it right here. Still another witness. If the statements of persons who have always been considered reliable and truthful can be taken as authority, there is, besides the 11 witnesses of the Book of Mormon, still another one who testifies to having seen the plates. This person is a woman, and if her statement is reliable, she is the only woman on earth who has ever enjoyed the privilege of seeing the holy treasure. Her name is Mary Muselman Whitmer, familiarly known as Mother Whitmer, she being the wife of Peter Whitmer Sr. and the mother of 5 of the witnesses. Her son David Whitmer, before his death, testified on several occasions that his mother had seen the plates, and when the writer visited Richmond, Missouri a few weeks ago, John C. Whitmer, a grandson of the lady in question, testified in the following language. I have heard my grandmother, Mary Whitmer, say on several occasions that she was shown the plates of the Book of Mormon by an holy angel, whom she always called Brother Nephi. She undoubtedly refers to Moroni, the angel who had the plates in charge. And so this is really interesting because the grandson of Mary Whitmer is claiming that Mary Whitmer was incorrect when she said that it was Brother Nephi who showed her the plates. And so now we have what I find to be a very interesting problem in our history, where we've got some people saying that it was Moroni that visited Mary, yet Mary herself said it was Nephi. She doesn't say which Nephi. She probably didn't know. Was it Nephi, the son of Lehi? Was it Nephi in the book of Helaman or third Nephi? We don't really know. So I just thought that was a very interesting finding as I was going through these stories and recording them in this Book of Mormon Heartland.com. Another one that I thought was really interesting had to do with David Whitmer's story of there was 2 things in this article in the Millennial Star. Let me scroll down some to where it was at. So there was a mission where Joseph F. Smith and Orson Pratt visited David Whitmer when David Whitmer was an older man. Let me see if I can get to where I'm looking for. Okay, so now in the story of the meeting of David Whitmer, so what was going on is Oliver Cowdery and Joseph Smith were living in Emma Hale's parents' home and translating the Book of Mormon, and they were working on the translation, and Joseph Smith was attempting to translate through the Urim and Thummim, and instead of translating, he started dictating a letter to David Whitmer. And so David Whitmer, so Oliver Cowdery knew David Whitmer, and so let me go ahead and read this. Yes, he stood before us. Our testimony as recorded in the Book of Mormon is strictly and absolutely true, just as is written there. Before I knew Joseph, I had heard about him and the plates from persons who declared they knew he had them and swore they would get them from him. When Oliver Cowdery went to Pennsylvania, he promised to write me what he should learn about these matters, which he did. And he wrote me that Joseph Smith had told him Oliver's secret thoughts and all he had meditated on going to see him, which no man on earth, as he supposed, but himself. So he stopped to write for Joseph. Soon after this, Joseph sent for David Whitmer to come to Harmony to get him and Oliver to bring them to my father's house. I did not know what to do. I was pressed with work. I had some 20 acres to plow. So I concluded I would finish plowing and then go. I got up one morning to go to work as usual, and I, going to the field, found between 5 and 7 acres of my ground had been plowed during the night. I don't know who did it. but it was done just as I would have done it myself, and the plow was left standing in the furrow. This enabled me to start sooner. And I'll just put a little commentary in here. I was always taught when I was younger that, there was some big story about the three witnesses of the Book of Mormon. The three Nephites came and did it, but he didn't really know. Okay, so it says, this enabled me to start sooner. When I arrived at Harmony, Joseph and Oliver were coming toward me and met me some distance from the house. Oliver told me that Joseph had informed him when I started from home, where I had stopped the first night, how I read the sign at the tavern, where I stopped the next night, etc., and that I would be there that day before dinner. And this was why they had come out to meet me, all of which was exactly as Joseph had told Oliver, at which I was greatly astonished. When I was returning to Fayette with Joseph and Oliver, all of us riding in the wagon, Oliver and I on an old-fashioned wooden spring seat, and Joseph behind us, while traveling along in a clear open space, a very pleasant, nice-looking old man suddenly appeared by the side of our wagon and saluted us with, "Good morning. It is very warm," at the same time wiping his face with his face or forehead with his hand. We returned the salutation, and by a sign from Joseph, I invited him to ride if he was going our way. But he said very pleasantly, "No, I'm going to Cumorah." This name was something new to me. I did not know what Cumorah meant. We all gazed at him and at each other, and as I looked around inquiringly of Joseph, the old man instantly disappeared so that I did not see him again. I just think that this was a very interesting story to me that, I'd heard stuff like this, but I never really had the details. And so, like I said, as I was working on this throughout the year, it's just interesting to go through these stories and write them down. So now I'm going to ask if anybody out there feels like they're a historian and they want to contribute to this project. Please get in contact with me. Another part of it that I want to take care of is on the Book of Mormon section. I want to cover the Isaiah chapters. I want to do a good verse by verse comparison. Now, the reason I want to do this is because 10 years ago, I felt that I was not very good at the Isaiah chapters. In fact, when I first moved to Tucson, I remember going to on Wednesday night, going to the church library, going to some activity and speaking to a lady in the church library. And I told her my frustration about Isaiah. And she said, "Well, that's interesting because I understand it very well. When I read through the Isaiah chapters, I know exactly what he's talking about." And because she said that to me, I spent a lot of time going through the Isaiah chapters and learning what they say. And now I would like to annotate it. I would like to put it in a place. In fact, I'd even like to have Zoom conferences, Zoom meetings, where we can have 3 or 4 people just kind of go through each of the Isaiah chapters and give good commentary to give anyone who is struggling to understand the Isaiah chapters, and so that they can understand them better. And it will just help them with their gospel study. And if you'd like to help with that, please let me know. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my section with artifacts and language studies. And let's go over some of the Egyptian words in the Book of Mormon. So well, most of these words are words that you've probably wondered about for a long time. Ramiumptun, where in the world did that word come from? So it's Alma 31:21. Now the place was called by them Ramiumptun, which being interpreted is the holy stand. And then the next verse is actually very important. "Behold, O God, they cry unto thee, and yet their hearts are swallowed up in their pride. Behold, O God, they cry unto thee with their mouths while they are puffed up, even to greatness with the vain things of the world." So when I go into the Chicago Demotic Dictionary, you could see this RMY, Rami, which means cry or lamentation. That was very interesting. The very beginning of this right here may very likely be Egyptian for cry or lamentation. I don't have the eumpt, but what I do have is THM or tum, which means, you can see it right there, straight from the dictionary, footstool, the holy stand. So I don't have the word holy in here, but I have the word cry and I have the word stand. I just find that fascinating. Okay. The next one, the city of Manti. Well, you've got MNT right there, which means a porter or doorkeeper. So when I read this, it basically tells me that the city of Manti was probably used, or was probably seen geographically as some sort of a entryway into the Nephite lands. I mean, Manti was west of the River Sidon. Most things in the Book of Mormon geography are east of the River Sidon, but Manti is west. I do have a write-up of the location of the city of Manti, but we're not here to cover that. But I just found it very interesting because there's information in Doctrines of Salvation that gives a good hint to where that location is. And I went there and found mounds there. The city Antionum. I find interesting things in the Chicago Demotic Dictionary about Antionum. You can see right here that thing that looks like a 3 is kind of like an O, aunt. Exact pronunciation, they don't really know. The Egyptologists could just kind of guess at it. But aunt means to repel, restrain, or to hold back. Then we've got onum, which means to go. Now, if you remember in the Book of Mormon, it talks about the city of Antionum as being a strategic location where they placed the people of the anti-Nephi Lehis near them, and the land of Antionum was to provide a protection from the Lamanites. And therefore, Antionum must have been in a strategic location that would have kept the Lamanites out. And here, when you look at the actual meaning of the word, it's kind of like saying, if you go here, we will hold you back. We will repel you and restrain you and stop you from coming. So don't come here. If you come here, forget it. You're not getting through. So that seems to be what the word Antionum means. As I was going through the day, I realized I missed one of the words here because I also had Jershon figured out, the land of Jershon. And so I don't have the snippets from the dictionary, but Jer means all, Shon means fruit trees. And those also came straight from the Chicago Demotic Dictionary. So the word Jershon means all fruit trees. We come to Mormon 1:3. I've got 2 interesting words here. The hill Shem. Therefore, when ye are about 20 and 4 years old, I would that ye should remember the things that ye have observed concerning this people. And when ye are of that age, go to the land Antum, unto a hill, which, notice the wording, shall be called Shem. It's not called Shem, it shall be called Shem. And there I have deposited unto the Lord all the sacred engravings concerning this people. And here I find this word, the S with that marker on the top is an SH. I got Shem. And what does Shem mean? Row, corridor, ambulatory. But down here, it also means storage place, storehouse. So the hill Shem that was used to deposit the records was in Egyptian, the storehouse. Okay, so now let's look at Antum, because it was in the land Antum. What does Antum mean? Well, take the same ONT from Antionum, repel, hold back, restrain, and then it's a YM, and it means see. And actually, the same word is in Hebrew. In Hebrew, it's also the yod and the square-looking M. So it's the thing that looks like an apostrophe, and next to it is the square-looking M, and that means see in Hebrew, and it's also see in Egyptian. So I've got Antum repels the sea. Now, when you think about the geography and you consider that Cumorah is not far from Niagara Falls, and you consider that, so you've got Lake Erie, which has this river that comes out, drops down significantly at Niagara, and then the river continues and goes into Lake Ontario. And so then you've got this long strip of land that goes between the two lakes. And what does that land do? That's the land that repels the sea. It keeps Lake Erie from spilling into Lake Ontario. So that's a theory. It works for me. And that's what I actually think it is referring to. I think that Anthem is referring to that strip of land between the two lakes. Now the famous one, Erie Anthem. So I know the Egyptologists have kind of, at BYU have kind of skirted this, or just basically said they're not really certain, but I looked it up on Book of Mormon Central, what they said about it, and it was something to the effect of, well, there are other languages that have a word that's similar to it. So let me break it down for you. The IR means river. Okay, IR is river in Egyptian. We've already talked about that as being sea. You've got river and you've got sea. Now I come into this, The Grammar of Demotic by Janet Johnson. It's a very standard textbook in the Egyptology, in the world of Egyptology. Actually, it was Dr. Gee that recommended this PDF to me. And I find this word for large and great. And that's basically 3 vowels. It doesn't look like it in English, but trust me, that's 3 vowels. And how they pronounce it is pretty much unknown unless you want to take the hint from the Book of Mormon. And since Erie Anthem is supposed to mean many waters, and we've got ear for river, Ian, I think that's Ian right there. And then finishing it up, I don't have this documented here. It actually came to me while I was driving today. The water symbol is kind of this jagged line, and it is a phonetic N. It doesn't normally mean water unless you have 2 water symbols, then it does mean water, and it's 2 N's put together. The T is very likely the female definite article. So if you have NT, N for waters, T for saying that the waters are feminine, and then you've got C, it kind of gives you the river and sea of many waters. Now, whether or not you're going to get another Egyptologist, a legitimate trained Egyptologist with a PhD to agree with me on it, probably going to be hard pressed, but this is what I see. And so I'm sharing it with you. Okay. So that covers the words that I found in the Book of Mormon that I find in the dictionaries of Egyptian. So the last thing I wanted to go over with you is Reformed Egyptian in church history. Now in the Joseph Smith papers, you've got this page, I have a link to it right there. But Frederick G. Williams actually wrote this small portion. He evidently learned it from Joseph Smith. And this is supposed to be the Book of Mormon. And this is supposed to be the interpretation of languages. And if you don't know anything about Egyptian, particularly Demotic Egyptian, that would mean absolutely nothing to you. But let's go ahead and let's break it down. This right here is a screenshot from the Chicago Demotic Dictionary. That's an M. There's your M. Screenshot Chicago Demotic Dictionary. There's an R. There's actually 3 ways of writing an R. 2 of them are in the Chicago Demotic Dictionary. It's either a circle or a forward slash. There's your forward slash. MR. Here's your N from the Chicago Demotic Dictionary. Now, just to make the case, in Demotic, they don't always write it as it's written in the dictionary. I think in English, you'd probably say that's pretty true too. Everybody's handwriting is different. But things will be laying on their side. They'll be upright the next time you see it, and inverted, and they're all over the place. And there's your N right there. There's your word Mormon. Let's look at this right here. So I'm going to go to the Middle Kingdom Egyptian. In the Middle Kingdom Egyptian, your R is now a mouth. So it's still a circle, it's just a mouth. And we don't really have the word book because, they wrote on papyri and rolled it up in scrolls. And so that's not really a book. But we have the Book of Mormon, and the word to know is this mouth, the R, and then you've got a papyrus next to it. That's a papyrus right there, that rectangle with 2 dots. And so we go back to what we were looking at here. We've got a line with 2 dots, which could very well represent the papyrus. And then you've got the R, which is used for the word to know. And so you may say I'm reaching on this one, and I will acknowledge that you're correct. I am doing some reaching here, but that's enough for me to tell me that there's a good chance that this actually does mean book in Reformed Egyptian. Since Joseph Smith said it was book, and since it seems to fit in the Egyptian dynamic in my sense, I'm going with it. And this also is very similar. You've got the R there and you've got the papyrus, and this is for interpretation of languages. Okay. But now let's get to another item, another artifact, and maybe you've seen this thing before. I was in Nauvoo doing some work with the Heartland Research Group, and somebody texted me this image, and I remembered when I was young seeing this and just thinking, oh, that's weird, and then go on my way. But let's go ahead and break this thing down. Let's go ahead and start with number 3, because this is the fun one. Because in my Michigan Artifacts presentation, I define this symbol. It's an N. Did I put a screenshot in here? No. Okay. Well, in the Michigan Artifacts presentation, you have Noah artifacts, and it's very clear that Noah is a vertical line with 2 strokes and a leg. You've got him standing on the artifact with his 2 arms out and his legs sticking out. You've got his name where you got the 2 strokes and a leg next to a circle for the O, and it's Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and it's next to Noah. So the N is a phonetic N. This right here is a phonetic N in the Michigan script. It's not Egyptian. But the N, let me see. Do I have to scroll down for it? Okay, yeah, I did put it here. So you got 2 strokes and a leg for his name and in the circle. You got Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and I've got others that I could point out, but I didn't put here. But the N here in Coptic, you could see Tamai and Isi. N is the word of, the mother of Jesus. In Demotic, you could see right here, weapons, N for of, iron. The N is the word of. And so now here in our document, in our brick, we're expecting the Book of Mormon, and we have the word of right there. Now, if we go back to what we were looking at above, you had the circle and the papyrus, and a little bit of artistic rendition of where you place your plates in when you're securing them into your book. So now there's the word book, the book of. But what about this right here? This comes from Leonardo Caldas Vieira, Egyptian Demotic Guide, page 16. The definite article, which is the word the. The female definite article is a T, and it looks like a 3. Now, remember what I said about Demotic Egyptian, about being able to lay things over, stand them up. You have this 3 laid over, and it is the word the book of. We've looked at the letter M before, and it was that curve. He's added a little bit extra here. And if you have studied the characters document, you will notice that this particular document is in the characters document, I think 3 times. And it is the shape, the base shape is that letter M. I'm going to skip this one because this one took me a little bit of time to figure out. It fits for the R, but it's not the circle, and it's not the slash. But we have the slant again, just like the M. So there's your other M. And then we got the sword thing. Let's go down here. The sword is an I or an E. And then you've got your N again. They've gone artistic again, making it look like the plates or a book. So you've got, the only one we haven't figured out yet is this R. And I went to, you know, I went to, you're only, okay, let me back up a little bit. I have basically determined that this usage of the R that is found right here is not found in later Demotic Egyptian. By the time you get to the Rosetta Stone, you know, the time when Greece was involved in Egypt, and you get into the, you know, the Roman period where they were still using Demotic, their R's were the slashes or the circles. They didn't look like this. But when you get into the early Demotic, and remember, Demotic started, the first known Demotic writings started around 650 BC. And so I was looking at other documents such as, you know, there's the Persian documents when the Persian documents. Okay, but I found, let me see, can I find the tab? The Zoom is kind of hiding my tabs. But I actually found the R in two places. Well, there's one version of it, and this is from the Egyptian Demotic Guide, where it's kind of like it, and it's longer here. Here's another version of it right here, where it's, you know, it's a little bit off, but it's close. And then I found it on, there it is. Okay. Wait a minute, I saw it just a little bit ago. Okay, I think I'm taking too much time looking for something that's hard to find. Okay, well, anyways, I'm sorry, I don't see it right now. I meant to include it in the presentation, but I didn't have time to put it in. So I found it in 3 different places, but you have to go to the early Demotic writings in order to find it. Okay, I'm struggling right now because I can't get to my tabs on my browser. Okay, but okay, well, let me go back up. Now I'm all messed up. Okay, artifacts and language studies. Book of Mormon and Reformed Egyptian. So basically, I've validated that is this is a good possibility as being book. This comes from the Michigan script of Demotic, early Demotic, regular Demotic, regular Demotic, and regular Demotic. The Book of Mormon. So that's basically what I wanted to cover tonight. How are we doing on time? 7:35. So I'm actually done a little bit early. So let's just go ahead and open up for questions and answers if anybody has any questions for me.
Ryan, great stuff. This is Larry. What about the Michigan plates? I know you've referenced that before, but the idea of that there's these ancient Egyptian and Reformed Egyptian writings all over North America, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I don't have the Michigan artifacts in this website yet. I plan to port them in, but I haven't ported them in. One piece of Reformed Egyptian I can show you real quick was the Chitata Wall. There was a wall found in the 1890s in near Chattanooga, Tennessee, and you could see right here. You know,
I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. So
okay, something's on my computer. Sorry.
Okay, so this is some writings that were transcribed off of the Chitata Wall, and as all things archaeologically related in North America, once you find something that's precious, you hand it to the Smithsonian Institute and it disappears. Okay, but somebody did write down some of these writings, and you could see these 2 symbols right there are an exact match to these 2 symbols right there in the exact order, and it basically means in the. You've got that 2 looking symbol is found in here in several places. This symbol right here is right here on line 5 right there. You've got the thing that looks like a 7 right there. And you've got that thing that looks like a 7 right there. I actually believe that that means Ron, means called. I believe that this means in the, but I can't translate this, but there's just so many, is that an R? That could be the R, the same R that pointed out in the Book of Mormon, the Nauvoo brick. So there's a lot of demotic letters and symbols that are in here, and a lot of matches to the characters document. And so I think that this is a very clear to me that this is Reformed Egyptian. If we want to go to the Michigan artifacts, I have my old website, which I intend to retire sometime soon, because I want to port it all into Book of Mormon Heartland.com. I mean, well, this right here is the Los Lunas Decalogue stone. This is actually Hebrew. Here's some more Egyptian that's at Los Lunas. So I wish I could stop the scrolling here, but this artifact right here, I don't know how to stop the scrolling, but that artifact that looked like the 10 Commandments was the 10 Commandments. And that was basically the basis of what I used in deciphering the Michigan artifacts, was taking those 10 Commandments written there and doing the best I can to figure out what the symbols mean. And one of the symbols right there, that right there, is also on the characters document, and it means remember. The Shabbat, remember the Sabbath. And one of the most fascinating things I discovered when I was studying the characters document was I actually learned the meaning of that, the pronunciation of that symbol, because of the characters document. And I'll go back to the characters document from the Chattanooga wall, the Chittata wall. You got this symbol right there. It's the same symbol that's in the Michigan artifacts for the word remember. And if you did a close up on it, you would notice that there's a little hook right there. You barely see it because it's very small for you, but you basically have a tzadeh, a Hebrew tzadeh, an Egyptian K, and a Hebrew resh giving you zakor. And zakor is remember in Hebrew. Found that fascinating. I actually did work the characters document, but I'm limited on what I can talk about it. So do you want to look at some more? Okay, so this artifact right here, it's going to scroll away from me in a moment.
Somebody's posted a question. This is, are the original 10 Commandments tablets found and preserved? And if so, where are they? So what, I think they're referring to that 10 Commandments tablet you had there. Yeah,
this particular 10 Commandments tablet was published by Rudolf Etzenhauser in a PDF. No, I mean, he published it in 1910. And then he was roaming around with Scottford and Soper and Savage, and Etzenhauser was part of that team, and they were digging up the artifacts of Michigan. And he published a pamphlet with photographs. He had some of these things photographed, this being one of them. And the whereabouts of this particular artifact today are unknown. That has been lost. A lot of the artifacts we have pictures of, but we have no idea of the whereabouts of them today. A lot of them, the ones that the church used to own, are now in the
Michigan collection.
Michigan, yeah, they're in Michigan at one of the museums.
So this has been a very interesting theme tonight, and it seems like each theme has turned out to have each night is at a theme. The theme for me tonight is truth. It's the factual truth. We've had spiritual truth yesterday. Now we're having these factual truths. So, and that's just how I'm perceiving it. So from, you're the more informed of all of us about these subject matters. So if I were to stand up among my peers in the banking and accounting and business community and say, it is an absolute fact that there were people in North America 1,000 years ago or more that wrote and communicated in Reformed Egyptian, would I be true?
Absolutely true. I've just shown 2 artifacts of it. I mean, actually more than one artifact. The Chittata wall demonstrates it, and this one demonstrates it, but you have to do a lot of more digging to demonstrate it. This is the Egyptian water symbol. this, well, this one's IR, which means to do or commanded. It's used as commanded. I mean, I didn't present the Michigan artifacts presentation tonight because I wanted to do other stuff and we're limited on time,
Right.
But if anyone wants to go over the Michigan artifacts presentation, maybe you said maybe in November you might want to
Yeah.
do it in these conferences. I'll do the Michigan
Yeah.
artifacts presentation.
So how many characters have you found that you feel confident about? How many of the Egyptian characters are you
I,
confident
I,
in?
I documented about 100 of them, and they're actually in Book of Mormon Heartland.com. I've created a dictionary and placed it in there in
Wow.
the language and artifact section. Now, Book of Mormon Heartland.com is not, I mean, it's publicly available, but it's currently protected from being crawled by Google because it's not a finished product yet.
Mhm.
And I'm going to keep it protected probably until the end of the year, or when I feel confident that I have enough content in there. The links are all good links. Enough of the things that I wanted in there from the outset are there. I don't have to
Okay.
have everything done, but I want to have enough done to have, a fairly completed book, I guess you could say.
Okay. Can we share that link now, or do you want us to wait?
Well, I don't know.
Well, there's 1,100 people on this email list at this point.
Yeah,
Is
I mean,
that a little too
yeah,
broad distribution for now,
I
or what?
mean, yeah, you could put it out there, but it's a work in progress right now, and it's
All
not
right.
being called by Google, and
Okay.
that's intended. I've actually have a long history of working in the web, and I understand how Google works on when it comes to search engine optimization, and there's a lot of content in this website.
There is.
Even in the section on Jesus Christ, I'm going through the last week of Christ, and as commentary, I'm not doing the commentary. I'm taking Frederick Farrar's book, The Life of Christ, which was written in the 1870s, a book that's quoted heavily by Bruce R. McConkie and even quoted in conference talks. Even the last conference had someone quote him. And I'm basically OCR scanning the chapters and dropping them in, adding more content to the website. And I know that Google loves content, and I'm hoping that when it's time to release it, then I could start really pushing it out and getting people to go to it. It's
Yeah.
intended to be a missionary tool. It's intended to be a member retention tool. It has been made known to me, I guess, through personal revelation, that I really need to focus heavily on the first three boxes, which is Jesus Christ, Joseph Smith, and the Book of Mormon. The stuff about geography and archaeology and language studies, that's secondary.
Okay.
It's nice. It strengthens you, but
Right.
it's secondary.
All right. Well, a compliment about you, if I may. I grew up in a trucking family. My dad was a trucker, and everybody that I knew around my family were truckers. And in that era, my general impression was that a lot of truckers were less educated, less socially capable. The kind of gypsies of the road kind of thing. What I've noticed in the last 20 years or so is that there's a group of people that go to the trucking industry because what they want to do is study and learn, and it gives them hundreds of hours a month to do that. That all the time they're driving, they're listening to great inspiring things, and then now they're forced. You guys can't drive the 16-hour days my dad used to drive, so
Yeah.
now they're forced to stop, and so during their stop times they're diving into books, they're diving the internet, they're doing this kind of things. And I just think that's it's an interesting choice you've made. I know you have a lot of other skills, but I compliment it because I know I get that what that lifestyle is doing for you. It's certainly taking care of your family, but it's giving you that time to add to your scholarship in a way that's very impressive.
Well, honestly, I'm trying to get back into IT. So,
All right. Okay.
but there is some truth to that, because I'll have to sit there for 6 or 8 hours at a time as they're loading the truck, and I'm working on Book of Mormon Heartland.com or
Yeah, that's awesome.
of that sort.
That's awesome. All right. So I'm going to share that for you. Do you have a testimony you'd like to share before we finish up?
Oh my gosh. Hannah said something similar to what I say. It's like, I don't just believe that Joseph Smith is a prophet. I know he was a prophet. I have physical proof that he was a prophet, particularly when I was going through the characters document and learned exactly what's in that document, because it's scripture. And it's it's Egyptian, and it's scripture. And the deeper I dig, the deeper I dive in almost everything, I just expect to find more proof of Joseph Smith's divine calling as a prophet. And every time it just happens, it just always just happens that way. Every time I'm digging in, I expect to find something, and I find something, and it just validates to my spirit and validates to my brain that Joseph Smith was a prophet of God, that he knew what he was doing, or he learned what he was doing when he was doing it. But when he was done with it, he knew what he had, and it was all divinely given to him. And so when a Korhor or someone else comes by and wants to say that he was not a prophet, it's not a question to me. Talk to the hand, because I know better. I know he was a prophet. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.